Alright, this is activity 2.2 number 2. For your reference, this is a 2-point perspective drawing of this little object right here. For the 2-point perspective, they ask us to go through the top right front view, so we're going to be using this top object for our reference. So what we're going to do, just like any other perspective drawing, we need to start with a horizon line towards the top of wherever you are going to draw your picture. So it's just a line. It doesn't have to be perfect, it can be a little messy across that area. There's no set size for this. It doesn't have to be a certain number of grid spaces, just probably about half your page if you're doing it lengthwise, or if you're doing it vertically like this, almost all the way across would probably be a good start. What we're going to do, since it's 2-point perspective, we need 2 vanishing points this time. There will be one on the left hand side, so vanishing point, and one towards the right. Again, there's no set spot for these. Again, just pretty far to the left and the right. When we start this, we know that our object is 3 total tall. We need to make our glass box just like before, but in the case of 2-point perspective, our height is the only thing that's parallel along these grid lines. Okay, we usually start a little right of center, so this is about halfway, maybe a little bit right of center, and probably 5 or 6 blocks down would be a good start. We're going to do a line. Since we know it's 3 total height here, we're going to double it so we have enough space, so about 6. Okay, to do our 2-point perspectives, the top and the bottom have to go all the way to our vanishing points on both sides. So our top goes to the right, our bottom goes to our right hand side, our top goes to the left, our bottom goes to the left. Alright, again, these are our construction lines. You want them to be pretty light. I'll darken them a little bit so you can see them a little better. They're also a little curved on mine at the moment. Try and make these as straight as you can, but if they have a little give to them, that's alright for now. Again, these are the first ones we're doing our best to practice. So what we'll do from here, we know we want to do our top, front, and right hand view, as it said in our question. What we need to do is we'll have a longer side over here than it will be over here. So if we notice it was a 4-block long object in this direction, we know it'll be kind of similar to our height. So sometimes we usually, again, just estimate. You could say something about the pencil length there. So maybe we would bring it over towards this line. Again, it'll be a little different depending on where you put your first line or where you put your vanishing points, and that's perfectly fine. There's lots of ways for this to look, and all of them, or almost all of them, are going to be perfectly fine. Okay, remember, for 2-point perspective, only the height is parallel to the grid. Our length is going to our left-hand vanishing point, our depth goes to our right. So only our height is parallel. Alright, to finish off the glass box, we need to take both of these new lines and take the top of them to the opposite vanishing point. So we're going to take this one over here, from the left to the right, and then from our right-hand side to our left. So these kind of cross along and create the top of our box. So once we have this box, we need to do just like we did for the 1-point perspective and say where it touches the faces of that box. So for our right-hand side here, we know it's the entire width of the object, but it's only about 2/3 of the height, so it's 2 blocks out of 3. So the only place we can actually measure for these 2-point perspectives is from this very first line right here. So we had made this 6 tall, since we knew it was 3 total. So if we went 2/3, we go 4 into this. All right, if you didn't make it 6, that's fine. Just 2/3 of the way up this line. We take this spot right here. Again, since it's going depth, it has to go to this vanishing point. And we know it's this bottom portion, so we're going to darken this entire bottom rectangle. Because we know that it's the object. So these are our object lines. Alright, so now we have our right-hand side. Now we want our front. We know it's the same height as our right-hand side, but it's a different length than the entire object. We'll start with our height though. So it's the same height. We can take this point we just made and just take it to our other vanishing point. just like this, to kind of cut off that top third that we don't need. And then we see again, this is 3 out of 4, so 3/4. So we're just going to estimate. This would be about half of that half was going to be our 3/4 mark. So again, this is parallel to those grids since it's vertical. So now we want to keep this right-hand portion of it. So we're going to darken this line. We're going to darken these to create the front of our object. All right, last one for the surfaces is the top. We know that it's 1 block out of 2, so it's halfway this way, and it's 2 out of 4, so halfway in this direction as well. So we go to the top of our glass box and we cut it in half. So this is halfway approximately between these 2 points. Okay, and then we take this line all the way to our vanishing point. So it's going to cut the top in half in this direction. All right, we're going to do the same thing from this direction, so about halfway here. And then we're going to take that line to the opposite vanishing point. Okay, so this kind of makes a 4/4 portion on the top. And we know we want to keep this back corner. So we're going to darken that back corner. All right, I'm trying to make these really nice and dark so you can see them well. All right, so what we're going to do from now is I'm going to lighten up some of the construction lines we made, since again I did these a little dark so you could see them a little better. And usually we want them to be pretty light. So again, I'm not erasing them all the way, just very slightly so that they're a little lighter and I have more contrast between my object lines and those construction lines. All right, once you've got that, we need to connect the rest of our object together. So kind of like the one we did for 1-point perspective, this front box here kind of closes back around the rest of the object. So like we did with the original box we made, these corners need to go across to our vanishing points. This one's going to go over to the right. This one's going to go across to the left. Okay? So now we need to see where these connect. This left-hand corner of the top comes straight down past the rest of the object. So you can bring this parallel to those vertical lines. Right, we know we're going to want some of this diagonal line, so we can darken a little bit of that right now. And then what we need to know, we know this is halfway between these two, so we're going to do that trick like we saw at the top of our box right down here. So about halfway between this, that point goes back to our vanishing point. And we want to darken this diagonal up to where that one meets it. Okay, we know from the drawing here that this comes across to wherever this halfway point meets, but this halfway is only from these 2 corners together. So this one can come straight down to wherever that new diagonal is, and then we can darken it in this direction. Okay, so it kind of comes up and over that object. All right, we know that this right-hand corner is going to come straight down to meet with this edge. So light construction line, this one's going to come down until wherever this one would go with our vanishing point. So this one would go across. So this we can darken. This we can darken. And then we know that this has to go back to meet it, which is actually right here. That line that we started with earlier. So then this is our 2-point perspective of this object right here. We want to make sure we do our tonal shading. So our right-hand side is the darkest. All right, just like this. We'll fill these in a second. All right, so again, our right-hand side's the darkest. Our front is the halfway point. And then we leave the top blank. If you do have a lot of construction lines through the top, sometimes if you'd like, you can kind of lightly erase a little bit of them, just like before, just lighten them up, make sure they're still visible, because I do need to see those when you go through these. And then this would be your finished drawing for number 2 of activity 2.2.